Today we will discuss about the physical evidences of service marketing. Right. In our previous lectures, we discussed about the promotions, we discussed about the places, the importance of promotions, distributions and the place in service marketing. The physical evidences also plays a very important role in services marketing or marketing of services, right? Why it is very important, right? So what is physical evidences, right? Physical evidences are the tangible proof of these services, right? The physical evidences serves as a primary criteria for determining the customer's expectations prior to the purchase, right? And this has an effect on the way in which the personal and the customer interact, right? So it is very important, it is the tangible aspect of the services marketing, and it impacts the customer's mindset before purchases, prior to the purchases, right? It determines the customer expectations prior to the purchases, right? And it determines the effect, or it affects the way in which the personal and the customer interact, right? In the physical surrounding, customer experiences the services, which also has an impact on the service personnel and the customers interact, right? So in the physical aspect, right, it impacts the mindset of the customer, it impacts how the service personnel and the customers interact. The physical evidences plays a very important role even in case of the service sector, right? The environment in which the service is delivered and where the firm and the customer interact is defined as the physical evidences. So how can we define the physical evidences? Physical evidence is the environment where the services is delivered, where the services can be delivered, and where the firm and the customer interact, that is known as physical evidences, and these are the tangible aspects that promote these services. It helps to improve how the customer perceives the quality of services, right? The physical evidences impacts the customer mindset, and this physical evidences helps to improve how the customer perceives the quality of services, what they think about the quality of the services. Physical evidences communicates the credibility of the services, and it is very important for the service marketer, right? Physical evidences plays a very important role because it increases the credibility of the services, right? It increases the credibility, that it increases the faith or the trust of the customer in the service or the service provider. So physical evidence is what we can define the environment in which where the services are delivered, and where the customer and employees can interact, or the firms can interact. That environment is known as physical evidences, and physical evidences plays a very important role in services marketing because it increases the credibility of the services, right? And it helps the customer to perceive the quality of these services, right? How the customer perceives the quality of the services. There are basically two main kind of physical evidences, the peripheral evidences and the essential evidences. So I hope this is clear. The environment where the customer and firm can interact, that environment is known as the physical evidences. It could be of two types, the peripheral evidences and the essential evidences. Peripheral evidences is actually possessed as a part of purchase of service, but by itself it has no value. So peripheral evidences is what? That is purchased as a part of purchase, that is possessed, that is the physical evidence that is possessed as a part of purchase of services, but it's as such it has no values. Example, an airline ticket, right? A checkbook or a receipt of confirmed reservation in hotel are example of the peripheral evidences, that we have something, right, we have something in our hand that we actually possesses, but itself it has no value, right? Peripheral evidences adds on the value of essential evidences, right? So it adds on the value of the essential evidences, right? Such evidences must be designed keeping in mind the overall image which the organization wish to project, and reminder the value of evidence in its ability to remind the customer about the organization, right? So these peripheral organization, these peripheral evidences are designed in such a way, that how that in such a way that impacts the overall image of the organization, or it is as per the wishes of the organization, how they want to portray their value, right? How they want to make their image, right, as per the image of the organization. And the reminder value of the evidence is in its ability to remind the customer about the organization. Like you like with pizza, right, we get many those chili flakes and other pouches that are name with in the packets, that with the name of the service provider, right, who provides these services, right? And they give us those extra when we order that pizza, they give us some extra packets of those chili flakes and oreganos on which the names of the service provider has been published. Why they do so? Because they want that the customer should remind about that they should know about the organization, even if even after consumption of those services, they by seeing those packets, right, one can again reorder the services, right? So this is an ability to remind the customer about the organization, right? They want to be in the mind of the customer at each and every time. So peripheral evidences, that peripheral evidences adds on to the essential evidences, but itself it has no values. You have checkbook, you might have checkbook, but without account or without money in that account, that checkbook is of no use, right? And suppose if you have the someone has opened some account in some of the banks, and after some time they close that account, but still they possesses that checkbook, then that checkbook is a peripheral evidence, but itself it is of no use, because now that account is no more operative, right? What is essential evidences? Right, essential evidences cannot be possessed by the customer, right? That the peripheral evidences can be possessed by the customer, right? Air flight tickets, right, can be possessed by the customer, but the essential evidences, the service provider that who provides the services, that is the they cannot be possessed by the customer. The building, its size, design, right? Building size, design, interior layout, right, decor, logo, equipments are constitute of essential evidences, right? So you can have a hotel booking information, air flight ticket, right, but you can have, one can possess the peripheral evidences, but the essential evidences cannot be possessed by the customer, right? The hotel building cannot be possessed by the customer, their room cannot be possessed by the customer for you can possess this room for that particular duration of your booking, right? But that logo, the interiors, size, design, right, all this cannot be possessed by the customer, and these are constitutes the essential evidences. The essential evidences is very critical input in determining the atmosphere and environment of service organization, right? And it plays, and these essential evidences plays a very important role, right, in determining the atmosphere and environment of the service organization. What are the effects of the service scape on the behavior, right? That is, the service scape refers to the intentional manipulation of physical aspects that creates a service atmosphere or environment, right? So what is the service scapes? What does the service scape means? Service scape means the intentional manipulation of physical aspects that creates a service environment or atmosphere, that is known as the service scape, right? So service scape is what? The intentional manipulation of physical aspects. Service customers and employees are key to success of these services. Obviously, that the two important key factors or aspects of any of the industry, service industry, is the employees and the customer, right? If you don't have the customer, to whom you will provide the services, and if you don't have the employees, how can you provide the services? It is very, you should have employees who can provide services, and again employees are the that is the physical evidence of the service provider, right? So they are the two important key for the success of the service, and the environment in which services are provided has significant how they behave, right? And the environment in which the services are provided has a significant impact on how they behave. So the environment plays a very important role, right? So what is the service scape? Service scape refers to the intentional manipulation of physical aspects, right, that creates a service environment or atmosphere, right? And the that is the survey, that is customer and employees. Customer and employees are two key aspects of any service provider, and that service environment plays a very important role or significant role and impact how these two aspects behave, right? There are two main folds, right, for explaining how the service setting affects the customer and the service provider, right, by the environmental psychology. So the first is the stimulus or organism response model, right? How can, that is, there are two ways in which they behave, right? How the service environment impacts the employee or the stakeholder, important stakeholder. The first is stimulus organism response model or SOR model. According to this model, people's affective state or emotions and feelings are influenced by their environment, which in turns affect how they behave, right? Obviously, the affective state or the emotion, right, influenced by the is influenced by the environment plays a very important role in influencing the emotions, right, or feelings, right? And as per the emotions we behave, right? The environment influences the emotions and emotion influences the behave, right? In this model, the multidimensional environment serves as a stimulus, while customers and employees are the organism that respond to the stimulus. So in this model, the multidimensional environment, there are the multidimensional environment and that work as a stimulus, right? That work as a stimulus, and the customer and employees are the organism that responds to that stimulus, right? That is a environment, and the employees and the customer respond as per the stimulus, right? And the responses and behavior aimed at the environment, right? And the responses and behavior are aimed at the environment. So multidimensional environment is stimulus, right, which impacts the customers and the employees responses, right? Stimulus and responses are the behavior, and their responses are the behavior aimed at the environment, the behavior aimed at the environment. In this, the various aspects of this service scape will have impact on the customer and employees, that these individuals will act and react differently based on the internal response of the service scape. right? So the servicescape, so that the servicescape, the environment, what is the servicescape? Servicescape refers to the environment, right? So the servicescapes have an impact on the customer and an employee, and these individual will act differently based on the internal responses to the servicescape. They behave differently, right, on the basis of their emotions. They are, that is the internal response to the servicescape. The servicescape, right, impact the customer and employees, and each customer and employee behave differently in response to these servicescapes because of their internal responses. According to the environmental psychologist, people often respond to the environment in one of the two opposing ways, that is either approach or avoid. So they behave either in approaching way or avoid way, right? All desired activities that might be directed at a specific location, such as desire to stay, explore, work, and attach, are considered as an approach behavior, and reverse, that is desire not to stay, not to explore, not to work, not to attach, is the avoidance behavior. So they can behave either in two ways, that is they can either opt the approach behavior or the avoidance behavior, right? So this stimulus model, as per this stimulus model, right, that is the environment plays a very important role in affecting the emotions of the customer and employees, and as per emotions they behave. And there are the multi-dimensional environment which impacts the customer and employees, and they can behave either in avoidance way or in affecting way, right? Desirable activities, right? That is approach way. If the multi if that environment or the that environment impact positively, right, they behave in if that environment impacts the customer employees in a positive way, then then the customer and employees, right, behave in that acceptance way, right? They start behaving like in the approach way that they would like to stay at that place, right? They consider they would like to explore more about that thing, about the services and something like that. And the other is the avoidance way, right? When they don't, when the environment or the servicescapes impacts negatively either to the employees or to the customer, then they behave in the another way, that is the avoidance way, that they would not like to stay at that place, right, explore that place or attach to that place. That reflects in their behavior, right? So the working environment or the physical evidences plays a very important role. The valence and intensity model of affect. Another model is the valence and the intensity model. According to this model, affect can represent by the two interrelated dimension, the pleasure, that is the valence, and the arousal or the intensity. So the emotions are impacted as per this model. The that is the uh, affect, that is according to this model, affect can be represented by the two interrelated dimensions, that is emotion can be of two affected by the two things, that is the valence and the arousal, that is the valence is pleasure and intensity. Pleasure is a direct subjective response to the environment. That depends how much the individual likes or dislikes the environment. So pleasure depends on the environment. If someone likes the environment, right, so that the valence depends on that. And if someone doesn't like or don't like the environment, that impacts the services, or that the subject respond in that particular way. So it is a subjective response. Pleasure is a direct and the subjective response to the environment, right? And it varies, right? and arousal is less subjective concept than the pleasure quality, and describe how stimulated the person feels. They together decide whether the people approach the environment, spend time or avoid it, right. While the valence or the pleasure is a direct approach, while or subjective, right, while the arousal is less subjective, right, concept, right, less subjective concept than the pleasure quality, and describe how stimulated the person feels, right. Stimulations, intensity, how stimulated the person feels, right. And these together, that is the stimulus as well as the how stimulated the person feels, that is the intensity, right, and the pleasure, they work together, right, that either the people approach to the environment and spend time there and spend time and money, or will avoid it. The intensity and the pleasure, the intensity of their pleasure, right. That intensity or arousal is not direct subjective, but pleasure is subjective, right, direct and subjective, but this intensity and pleasure, they work together, and they together decide whether the customer or the employee will opt the what type of the approach they will opt, right, whether avoidance approach or they would like to spend time there, right. The emotional stat that are caused by the service environment directly affects how the customer and employee respond, right. So that the emotion is directly impacted by the service environment, right, and the formation of emotional state, the environment can influence the behavior in the form of approach or avoidance, right. So the service environment actually affect how the customer behaves, right. By seeing the environment, that impacts the behavior or the emotions or the response of the employees and customer, right. And through the formation of this emotional state, because of the service environment, the environment can influence behavior in term of approach or avoidance, right. Either they will approach, customer will approach or avoid. Approach behavior can again include the desire to remain in the service facility, explore more, engage with the service environment, right. And the avoidance behavior manifest desire to avoid the service facility, neglecting service personnel and other things, right, and customer, and causing a sense of disappointment and the dissatisfaction, right. So this plays a very important role, right. The service environment plays a very important role, and it directly impacts either the approach behavior of customer or employees, or the avoidance behavior of customer or employees, right. Then the physical environmental factor, right, and the physical environmental factor are designed to create a deliberate impact, right, and elicit a certain response of the target audience, right. The physical environments, we create the physical environment deliberately to impact and to get the certain type of response for the target audience, right. It has influence both on the customer as well as on the employees, right. See, the physical environment is not same in all kind of services, and it depends or varies on nature of the type of the services. So physical environment cannot be same for all the type of the services, it varies as per the nature and the type of the services, right. Suppose in case of the remote services, like in insurance services, right, utility services, where customer uses services from a distance and only employees carry out the action in the service settings, consideration must be given to the needs, effectiveness and motivation and satisfactions of the personnel in the physical environment, right. So it is important in these type of the services that employees should be motivated, right, should be well trained, right, and much consideration should be given to the effectiveness of the service personnel in the physical environment, because only that working environment is impacting the service personnel only, where because they are not visiting the customers are at the distance, and only the employees carry out the actions at the service settings, right. So this physical environment varies from services to services. When a customer uses a self services like in ATM or the vending machine, right, to get the services of their own, the physical environment should be simple and use and emotionally satisfying, right. When there are the machines, vending machines, then the process should be very simple, it should not be very confusing, it should be very satisfying, emotionally satisfying, and it should save their time, right, and other resources. So in case of customers, right, where they are helping themselves, the service provider should create an environment which should be very user friendly, right. Whereas in case of interpersonal services, where both the customers and service personnel share the service facilities like hospitals, restaurant, right, airlines, the physical environment must take into account the nature and quality of social interaction that will occur between the customer and the service provider, right. So what type of physical structure should be there, physical environment should be there, depends on the type of the services, right. Where there is where the customer contacts the service provider through phone lines, right, or through phones, or through other means, through emails, then it is important that the physical environment impacts the employees only and should be taken care of the employees, right. Another is when the customer uses these services directly without any help of the employees, then those services should be user friendly, processes should be user friendly, right. And in case where there is an interaction between the employees and the customer, then it is important, right, then it is important to take into account the nature or the quality of social interaction between the customer and the service provider, right. And physical evidences is a composite representations of ambience, design and the social relationship. The ambience, the design and the social relationships plays a very important role in physical evidences. Ambient factors like it refers to the aspect of environment or atmospheric condition present in place that affects the five senses. Ambient, we have five senses and the ambient affects our five senses, right. The ambient conditions includes like temperature, right. It should neither be too low or too high, right. Temperature, hot, cool, warm, right. Air quality, clean and fresh or polluted state or humidity, circulation, background music, noise, right, odor, all these are the ambient factor, and ambience impacts the psyche of or the emotions of the individual. So ambient includes the sitting arrangement, if specifically in case of restaurants, right, temperature, air quality, right, background music or noise, odor. These elements can have impact on how people feel, think and respond when they interact with the service provider. It impacts, right, that is, it impacts the interaction between the customer and the service provider. The design factor are those visual stimuli that exist at the forefront of customers awareness, like architecture, color, material used, shape, accessory styles, right, they have significant meaning. Different elements of the physical evidences act as an explicit or implicit signal for use of that place, right. So design factor plays a very important role, like there could be the explicit communicators and the implicit, like that explicit communicators could include the signs or symbol that is placed both inside and outside the facility and can be used as a label, like and it conveys the first impression or the first concept and builds a first impression, like it includes the signs, symbols, artifacts that are essential, like signs and symbols, right, for exit sign, entry sign or label, right, washrooms for male, females, right, inquiry counters, right, and many other, right. This plays a very important roles, right, or reception centers, right, all these things plays a very important role. The design plays a very important role in this, right, and it gives a first impression about the service provider, right. Then the social factors. The social factor relates to the interactive environment comprising of the people. That is interaction between the service provider and the customer, right. When evaluating the quality of service environment, the appearance and behavior of both the service personnel and customer should be significantly taken into account, because have the capability to improve or diminish the image of the service environment, right. So, social factors includes the interactive environment comprising of the people, right, and when evaluating the quality of services environment, the appearance and the behavior of the service personnel and of the customer, right, they play a very important role, right, should be taken into account, right. The concept of aesthetic labor is used to convey the significance of service personnel outward appearance to the customers, right. That is how the service provider appears to the customer conveys the significance of service personnel. Similar to this, marketing communication may aim to draw customer who will actively contribute to the ambience developed by the service provider through their own appearance and conduct, in addition to valuing it, right. So, customer, even the customer plays a very important role, right. So, the physical environment can influence the social interaction in the two ways, by affecting the length and interaction and the flow of events, right. So, how the physical evidences plays an important role in interaction, right, that by lengthening, that is it influences the social interaction, right, by affecting the length of interaction. If the physical environment is not that good, people will not like to stay at that place for a longer duration. If the physical environment is good, right, people would like to be at that place for a longer duration. And the flow of events, how the events goes, right, the physical proximity, that is it includes what, the physical proximity, right, the sitting arrangement, if the sitting arrangement is comfortable, right, and the people are available. If you want to to interact with the service provider, with the employee of the service provider, the sitting arrangement is there, you can sit there comfortably, and the someone will come to interact with you, that is the sitting arrangement, right. Physical proximity, it plays an important role, that physical proximity. Size and flexibility of settings, right, that what is the size, what is the flexibility of setting, all have impact on opportunity for and constraint of social interaction between the customer and the service provider, right. If the sitting arrangement is good, right, physical proximity is there, right, by maintaining that the physical proximity should follow the certain rules in this, right, and that is positive, right. And the flexibility, that is size and flexibility of setting, the size and flexibility means overall the physical environment is impacting the customer in a positive way, right, then it impacts the social interaction either in the positive or negative way, right. It could provide an opportunity for and or constraint of social interaction between the employees and between the service provider employees and the customer, right. So, all this plays a very important role. There are certain rules of physical evidences, right. What are the roles of physical evidences, right. I made this chart and explaining all these things, right. The roles of physical evidences, first is shaping the first impression, right. the physical evidences plays a very important role. It shapes the first impression, right? Customer from the initial impression of the service provider when they are exposed to the exterior and interior elements of physical evidences of service facility. So this physical evidences is very important and plays a very important role in framing the first impression, right? The interiors as well as the exteriors of the service facility plays a very important role, and the first impression plays a very important role. Managing trust, right? This physical evidences serves as a signal to customer, a positive indication, and will reduce the consumer fear and the suspicions and the foster confidence. So if you know that they have certain that they have the office and the employees, so it helps in building the trust, right? And it helps in creating a positive mindset of the customer. So managing the trust, so physical evidences helps in managing the trust, that they have their office there, they have their physical facility there, at any point of time you can visit that facility, right? And shaping up the first impression plays a very important role. Facilitating the quality of the service, right? A good service facility makes it easier for customers and employees to participate in creation, delivery and consumption of these services. It ensures that the necessary support infrastructure is present in an appropriate place at operating as intended, right? So see, first is the physical facility creates a first impression. It helps in maintaining building a trust. Then it facilitates the quality of these services, right? Right, a good service facility, right, makes it easier. A good service environment make it easier for the employees as well as for the customers to create, to deliver and to consume these services, right? So it ensures that the necessary service support infrastructure is present, right, in an appropriate place and operating as intended. Changing the image, the physical evidences has ability to modify how people perceive the service provider and the service outlet, right? So this changes the image. It helps in changing the image. The physical evidences has the ability to modify the people perception about the service provider and the service outlet, right? So it helps in changing the perceptions or forming the perceptions, right, how people perceive the service provider and the service outlets, right? Providing the sensory stimuli. We have five sensory stimuli, so it providing the sensory stimuli. The main important element of physical evidences may arouses the senses. The stimuli encourage the customer participation in delivery of services and quality perception. So when we see something, when we can touch something, right? So all these things, odor, smell, right? So all these things, the service facility or the physical evidences impacts our stimuli, sensory stimuli, and when our sensory stimuli are satisfied, then it impacts in a positive way, right? Socializing employees, right? Employee cooperation is essential for these services if customers are to receive a high quality services. So it is very important that the employees plays a very important role in this service industry. If you want a happy and satisfied customer, only the happy and satisfied employee can retain and can bring a new happy and satisfied customers, right? By communicating the desired roles, behaviors and relationship, the physical evidences can help in employee and consumer socializations, right? In case of any of the issues, the consumer can visit that place and can interact with the employees, right? And the service ambience foster formal and informal interaction and aids in fostering social ties among them. And that when the customer can come to that physical place, right, it fosters the formal and informal interactions, right, between the employees and the customer, and helps in fostering the ties between them, right. There are the guidelines for developing the physical strategies. What are the guidelines? Recognize the strategic importance of physical evidences, right. First of all, it is important to recognize the importance of physical evidences, right. For a successful strategy, it must be clearly linked with the goals and the vision of the organization, right. The physical evidences must be aligned with the goals and the visions of the organization. The concept of service for both internal and external client as well as future vision must be considered when designing it. Then the blueprint, the physical evidences of these services, right. It is very important that you should create a blueprint of this service. Service blueprinting should be done to ensure the clarity regarding how services processes are arranged, right. Why blueprint is required? So that it should be clear how the service processes are arranged, right, and where people and other environment as well as the equipment, furniture and other support material are placed, right. So how the people will be placed, right, sitting arrangements, right, equipments and furnitures and other supporting material are placed. So it is important that the first of all, while you are creating the physical evidences, physical environment, it should be aligned with the goals and the vision of the organization. There must be blueprint of the physical evidences before creating it, right. Suppose if the customer interacts with the service personnel at a counter, right, the first strategy at service process to offer the opportunity to manage the physical evidence elements for the expected outcome. Then clarify the roles, right. Clarifying the roles make it easier to find the opportunity and decide who should be contacted in a certain situation to make facility design decision. Clarifying the role also acknowledge the significance of physical evidences in creating positive service experience. So it is very important to clarify the roles, right. It acknowledges the significance of physical evidences in creating a positive service experience, right. So whom to contact should be very clear, who will do what, it should be clarified. Clarify the role, right. Update and modernize the physical evidences. So it is very important from time to time update the physical evidences, right, and modernize it as per the requirement, right. And service provider need to be ready to adapt when the market changes, right. The orientation to change makes the firm innovative and significantly more effective than the competitor in influencing the opinion of the customers, right. So update and modernize the physical evidences. It gives an upper hand to the customer, rather it gives an upper hand, or it gives a advantage over the it gives an advantage over the competitors, right. And and the and it shows that the companies or the service provider are innovative and influences the and can influence the opinion of the customers, right. Then encourage the team approach. Again, it is very important, right. um, the team should be there, and that it should encourage the team approach. If a malfunctioning team is not involved in their if a malfunctional team is not involved in their conception, design and management, there is a significant possibilities that these evidences will proceed in the opposite direction, right. So encourage a team approach. The service user interact with the system that exposes him or her to the physical evidences and elements. So it should be a teamwork, right. So that involve the team members and other members, encourage the team approach while designing the physical evidences, right. Otherwise it could create a problem. right. So this was about the physical evidences. Physical evidences plays a very important role in service marketing or marketing of services. Now managing service process, right? Another P, processes. It is important to manage the processes, right? What is the processes? Service processes. Service processes outlines the manner and order in which service system operates, as well as how they interact to produce the value proposition that customers are promised. So processes is what, that is how will you deliver the services to the promised services to the customer, right? So service processes actually outline the manners and order in which the service system operates, right? It describes the system, how the service system operates and how they interact to produce the value proposition that customers are promised. So processes is, you can say it is an outline, the manner, outline the manner or the order, how the service system operates, and service system operates and creates the services of values which has been promised to the customers, right? Service processes are the architecture of the services, which must be planned and managed to deliver the desired outcome, desired customer experiences, right? So these service processes are actually the main important part of the service industry, right? It is the only thing, right, from which we get the expected output. The process used to create and deliver services is critical, right, to the performance of the service operations, right? The process, how you create the services, how you deliver the services is very important in the performance of service operations in the service industry, right? Shockstack gave much simplified version and described the processes in the three stage, right? So Shockstack described the process in the three stages. The first stage is a process can be broken down into the logical steps to facilitate the analysis and control. So this process should be broken down into the stages, into the logical steps, the sub stages, right, sub processes. Secondly, there are more than one available options of processes in which output may differ. The second is that that there could be more than one available option for the process and the output could differ. And finally, each system include the concept of deviation or tolerance standard in recognition that process are real time and phenomenon that do not conform perfectly to any model or description but function within the norms, right? As we know, because the services are real time services and result cannot be same every time, but the services or the result could be within the certain norms, right? So Shockstack gave this simplified version of described the process in the three stages. The first stage of the process is that it is important that process can be broken down into the logical step, right, to facilitate analysis and control, right? So it should be broken down into the sub processes so that it could be easy to analyze and control. Second is there could be more than one option for the process in which output may differ, right? There could be more than one option can be available for the process and in which output may be differ, and that each system includes the concept of deviation because the service deviation or tolerance standard, the process are real time, right, phenomenon and do not conform perfectly to any of the model, right, or description but should function within a norms, right? So obviously processes, that there are the three stages of processes according to the Shockstack, right? Then the classifying the service processes, we can classify the service processes from the operational standpoint, right? That we can divide it into the major four categories based on the tangible aspects on the people or physical possession, right. So, we can divide it on the tangible aspects of the people, right, physical possession and intangible actions on the people, minds and intangible assets. So, categories are people processing. So, first is people processing, possession processing, mental stimulus processing and information processing. So, there are the 4 categories of the service processes: people processing, possession processing, mental stimulus processing and information processing. People processing. People processing needs user and customer to go through a series of actions, right, during the service delivery in order to receive the desired benefit of that services. People processing means that it is required that the people or the customer to go through a series of actions during the service delivery in order to receive the desired benefit of such services, right, like hairdressing, right. It is a people processing that you have to go through a series of actions, right. So, in order to get the desired benefit of these services, right, or a dental work, right, or a passenger transportation, all these are the people processing that the before availing these services, it is required that the customer should go through a series of actions, right, during the service delivery. Then the possession processing, right. Possession processing, the presence of customer is not required. The object needs to be processed, must be present, right. That it is not required that the people should be present, right. A person should be present, but the object which need to be processed should be present. As a result, the service provider has more flexibility to develop and deliver the services. Example is elevator repair, home repairs, right. It is not required that people should present there, right, but the object that needs to be processed should be present, right. That is air freight, right, or cleaning of the lawn should be there. It is not required that you should stand there, right, or that is the home repairs or the elevator repairs. It is not required that you should stand there. Lift repair, right, all these things are the possession processing. Then mental stimulus processing. It refers to intangible activities that are directed at people's mind and have ability to affect the attitude and influence the behavior. So, mental stimulus processes has ability, it is intangible in nature, right, and has ability to impact the attitude and influence the behavior, like education, news, information, theater performance, entertainment, right, support sports activities or expert council, religious activities are all example of mental stimulus processing. It is intangible in nature, but it affects the attitude and influence the behavior. Customer in this situation must be mentally present, although there can be situation, although they can be situated either nearby, right, for example in the same lecture hall or sports stadium, right, where services are being created and delivered, right, or could be far away yet connected via broadband or internet or through communication linkage. So, mental stimulus processing services, right, that impacts the attitude and behavior of the services, right. Example are many, right. Then information processing services. Information processing refers to intangible operation again and carried out on the customer's assets, right. Right, information communication technology as well as the experts who analyze the package information using their brains are 2 ways that information can be processed, like insurance, banking facilities, financial counseling, legal help, right, market research, management consultants, medical diagnostic, right, are the few example of the industries that provide information processing services, right. The services request has been initiated in this category and there may not be much direct interaction with the customer necessary, and even that can be done over the phone, via internet or by the mail. That is the information processing services when we provide the information, right. It could be done through face to face or through other things, right. There could be types of service delivery process, right. Types of service delivery process, that is the, it could be mm, uh, that is could be line operations, job shop operations and intermittent operations. Types of service delivery processes, that it could be the line operations, right. Line operations, that the self service restaurant and the shops are examples of the line operations. How you deliver the services, right. Process, types of delivery processes, how you deliver the processes in line operations, that is the self service uh, processes, that is the known as the line operation. The consumer move through the logically arranged operations which are arranged in sequence, right. Like the kind of delivery processes, you are providing a fair standard and consumers requirement is of routine natures, for example, in grocery store, right. When we visit some grocery store, we pick up the material, we pick up the things which we need, right, and then we go to the cash counter, stand in the line, wait for our turn, and when the turn comes out, they generate the bills, we pay the bills, and then we come out of that shop. That is the line operations. When the it that is in this, everything is logically arranged and it is like a self service operations, right, and everything is logically arranged. Then the job shop operations, right, when the consumer requires a combinations of services, right, using the different sequences, the job shop type operations is more useful, right. When a consumer needs more services or a combination of services using different sequence, like in hospital, restaurant, educational institutes have this type of delivery, this type of operations, delivery process, right. In hospitals, right, some patients need only consultations as an outpatient, right, while some other may need consultation as well as the medication or x-ray, or some other require hospitalizations, right, or further investigations. So this is job shop operations, right. That is that then the consumer requires combination of these services using the different sequence. And intermittent, as the name indicates, that is intermittent operation are usually when the type of service is rarely repeated, that is the service is rarely repeated, not required again, right. That is firms offering consultancy on the project, right. This is intermittent projects, right. Or advertising agency also uses the intermittent delivery system, since each advertising campaign require a unique set of input, right. So intermittent process is that that is rarely, the operation is useful when the type of service is rarely repeated. We don't want to repeat that services, that is the type of the services, right. So we discussed about the type of the services. That's all for today, and we'll continue with this lecture in our next lecture, right. That's all for today. Thank you very much. Namaskar.